After the infamous launch of the Xbox One, Team Xbox has been trying to rebuild their culture and their brand. They've spent billions of dollars acquiring beloved gaming franchises with some of the most talented developers in the world. They have the money, the talent, and all of the game franchises they could possibly want. So why are they laying off thousands of people? Why aren't they shipping one game hit after another? They should be printing money at this point.
We're to increase the price to $20 a month.
As I've said before, making a great game or awesome hardware is very difficult even in the best of circumstances. But the problems with Xbox are more than that, and today we'll talk about the pattern I've seen in many companies, not just Microsoft, and how difficult it is to avoid and fix entrenched cultural problems. When Xbox started, it was exciting. Everyone wanted to be a part of it, which was great. It was easy to recruit.
It went well. We showed nothing, technically, but it started to build the excitement.
But it's not only talented people that show up, it's everybody. It's the talented people that you want, it's the incompetent people that you don't, and you have a few corrupt people thrown in the middle. And telling them apart, figuring out who to hire is hard. And here's the thing, even when you know it's a problem and you need to be very careful in your hiring, even the best people can make mistakes. And if a new hire is in a high leverage position, one that can severely impact the business, things can start to go poorly. And to be clear, high leverage positions are not just the executives. High leverage also means the people in what I call the interface positions, people that interact with large parts of the team or with the publisher or with the community. Think producers, art leads, programming leads, and community managers. People often overlook community management, but it is a very influential position on a game team. It's important because sometimes the community manager is the only person the gamer will ever interact with at the game studio. And a lot of feedback that a game developer hears about their game is filtered through high leverage positions, those interfaces. And if the data is changed or excluded by the person on the interface, the game developer doesn't get good feedback. And if you're not getting good feedback, it's very difficult to make good decisions. And this is a pattern I've seen in many companies, not just Microsoft, where success happens and suddenly you have all of this money, power, and fame. And people show up and they try to wrestle over it. They want to control it and the culture changes. In my view, this is what happened in Xbox. The culture went from being renegades that were mostly an engineering and production meritocracy to being a patronage culture filled with business people. And by patronage, I mean people who are hired for reasons other than being good at their job. And once it gets started, the culture sustains because every incompetent person that gets hired hires more incompetent people. And sometimes it's because they're trying to protect their position, so they don't want someone who's better than them working for them. But other times it's because they can't recognize competence even in themselves. You may have heard of the Dunning-Kruger effect. It essentially says that if you don't know something, then you can't recognize if someone else does either. So imagine you're an artist you've never programmed in your life, and you're being asked to interview someone and figure out if they're a good programmer. This is a very difficult problem. And on top of that, it's very difficult to separate competence from confidence. In an article for Pacific Standard, David Dunning said the following: "In many cases, incompetence does not leave people disoriented, perplexed, or cautious. Instead, the incompetent are often blessed with an inappropriate confidence, buoyed by something that feels to them like knowledge." This is one of the reasons you see these confident executives in the games industry who think they know more than the gamers themselves who they're supposed to be serving, and they're rolling out products that don't appeal to them. Gamers were baffled when the Xbox team charged an extra $100 for the Xbox One because they wanted to include the Kinect. I think the Xbox leaders hoped that by forcing Kinect into the hardware, game developers would have to support it and gamers would too. They didn't ask the game developers, they didn't ask the gamers, heck, they didn't even ask the publishers. I was working at Warner Brothers at the time, and I can tell you that we saw the numbers. Gamers were not that interested in Kinect. It was a pretty small part of the market. And they certainly did not want to spend an extra $100 for it. But still, they pushed it top down because they believed they were right. And this is what you see when a patronage culture takes over a company. They aren't customer focused, they're delusional, and they'll waste endless resources pushing their ideas. They move from a bottom-up culture where engineers and designers, the people doing the work, have a seat at the table, to one where it's top-down and the company is only as smart as the CEO. Well, I don't care how smart the CEO is, I would bet on a team over an individual any day. And these delusions aren't just at Xbox. Take a moment and watch the pivoting of Silicon Valley. In 2021, everyone's building a metaverse. Facebook even changed their name to Meta. And then a short time later, it's all about AI. Facebook is so worried about missing the next big thing that they stop leading. They just start chasing whatever the latest trend is. And it's understandable because they almost missed the cell phone completely. They were so far behind in 2012 that Zuckerberg had to pivot the entire company to focus on mobile just to catch up. And he never forgot that mistake. But we as customers, we sit here thinking, will these things ultimately work out, or are they just another fad? More delusions being pushed by executives out of touch with real people. When it doesn't work out, there's often no accountability because the people who are making the poor decisions, well, remember, they're not there for meritocracy reasons. In fact, oftentimes, the more failures, the more promotions they get. I remember being asked to lead a game that was considered a disaster because it had already lost something like $30 million for the company. And the team was going around joking that I was in the big leagues now, that I was finally losing enough money that I was going to be promoted in no time. And that's when I started to notice that pattern. Of course, sometimes it's deliberate. Some people are getting promoted because they won't threaten the position of other executives. Think about it for a minute. Satya, the CEO of Microsoft, made around $80 million in total compensation in 2024. That's a lot of money. I think it's hard for most people to even comprehend how much money that is. And then you think about it, Satya's the leader, the CEO of one of the most powerful companies in the world. He's got money, fame, and power. What would you do to keep that? Would you want to bring in an aggressive new employee who's going to challenge your position? Or would you want to play it safe? Think about all the times you've seen people do crazy things for money. A lot less money than what we're talking about here.
Tell me something you sell today if you offered $1 million for it.
Well, I wouldn't do it, but some people may sell their soul for $1 million.
This kind of mind-boggling money and power changes people. I've seen it many times. It changes people, even the ones who are trying to do their best.
George, I'll start you out at $20,000 a year.
And here's what I've observed. You don't know. You don't know how you're going to react to that much money or that much power and fame until you're tested.
Okay, George.
Okay, Mr. Potter. All right. No, wait a minute here. Wait a minute. I don't need 24 hours. I don't have to talk to anybody. I know right now. And the answer's no. Doggone it.
Money warps things, and it's a dangerous time when you're a successful studio. I worry about Sandfall. They've had incredible success, and they're likely going to encounter some corrupt people. And I hope Sandfall will be able to sort out their good offers from the bad. So even good people doing their best can falter in these circumstances. Even worse, though, is that some of the people are just plain unethical. People that are using the company and the team to increase their own value and not that of the people they're supposed to be serving. This is why I describe the culture of original Xbox as being mostly meritocracy, because some of the people who came over from Microsoft, they were empire builders, and all they wanted to do was take all of that power and fame and enrich themselves. They're not interested in making Xbox successful as much as they're interested in keeping their position. They care about things like media coverage. They want to be seen as a visionary, more than they want to build something useful. And in the case of these internal Microsoft people, it wasn't about the money. It was about the fame. They wanted that media coverage, and they fought over it like dogs fight over a bone. I remember being in a green room for the Xbox right before one of our E3 media briefings. A green room is where people that are about to go on stage gather ahead of time to get ready. So being in the room is pretty cool. It's full of all the Xbox presenters, all the game developers that are going on stage. And if there's someone famous, like an actor or actress, you get to meet those people. So I was pretty excited to be in the green room, even though I wasn't going to be going on stage. So I'm there, and one of the executives is complaining to a PR person about his interviews that week. He was upset because two of the publications that he really wanted to do interviews for had requested other executives. They explained this to him, but he didn't care. He was still mad because he wanted those interviews. It was about him, not what was best for Xbox. Fast forward several years later, and I saw it again. I saw it when I was asked to lead the augmented reality product team at Oculus. We had interviewed several people and had failed to hire, so I was asked to do the job and to talk to the team about it. So I'm talking to one of the researchers, and he has only one concern, and that is what will happen if we successfully launch the product. He wants to know whether or not I will be the one on stage taking credit for it instead of letting him do that. I laughed and said he didn't need to worry about that because there was zero chance that would happen. If we succeeded, Mark Zuckerberg would be the guy presenting. Mark would never miss being the face of the product he's spending billions of dollars on. So even in the early days of Xbox, we had people joining the team that weren't great hires. And gradually, the builders, the people that knew how to make things, weren't part of the decisions. As an example, look at what happened with Bungie when they were working on Halo 2. Bungie was having problems and they were behind. They needed an extra year. Well, the Xbox team didn't like that, which is totally understandable as it impacted their plans. So given the importance of Halo to the Xbox team, Robbie asked Ed Freeze to come and present to the rest of the leadership why it was that Bungie needed more time. I think it was totally reasonable to have that meeting. It was forcing some accountability. That said, he then did something I thought was unreasonable.
So we go in and we have the meeting, and Robbie basically goes around the room and takes a vote. And it went around the room and everybody voted to keep it on the original schedule. I walked out of the room and basically I just threatened to quit immediately. Robbie gave in, calmed me down, and he agreed, and he gave us the extra year for Halo 2.
Of course, given none of these people in the room had ever shipped a game, they of course voted that it should ship on time, as if that was going to make any difference at all. Remember, I interviewed with Bungie during Halo 2. There was zero chance they were going to make the date. It wasn't going to happen. And here's the thing, I liked Robbie. He was like Peter Moore. He was a great product marketing focused guy back when it was old school marketing and they talked to customers, wanted to know what they wanted. But he also knew to listen to engineers. So it was surprising that Robbie had done this. And I had a lot of respect for Ed F for standing up against that because it was ludicrous and it took a lot of courage for him to do that. So here you have Robbie. He's a good leader. And then he does something really dumb. Why? It's because he listened to the wrong people, right? He listened to the wrong people. And ultimately, even though he made the right decision for Halo 2, it cost him Ed Freeze. Ed Freeze left the company, and he was the person who brought him Halo in the first place. I worked with Phil Spencer, and I thought he was a good leader too. He listened to his team, and I agreed with his direction most of the time. And if I didn't agree, we could discuss it without me feeling like I would lose my job. But that was a different team. And judging from some of the mistakes around Halo and Perfect Dark, I'm starting to think that he's not getting good data, and that's part of the problem. Without talking to the team, it's difficult to know if it's mostly competent people that aren't being heard or corrupt and incompetent employees extracting value for themselves and driving the Xbox and the games off a cliff.
Cheers!
Normally, with a large enough team, you're going to have all of these people. And so the only question is whether or not the good guys are winning. Are the game makers, are the builders, Are they winning? Do they have a seat at the table? Are they being heard? Or have they lost their spiritual self? And if they're not being heard, are there enough left of them at the company in Xbox to argue for change? I hope so. But given that the stock market and the investors are still very happy with Microsoft, I think it's going to be a while before we hear the end of this story.
You know, it's amazing what you can afford once you get out of the hardware business. It really is.